Hi, in this video I am going to talk about steps in metagenomics. Metagenomics is a complex technique and based on the samples and based on the objective of the study, we used to have different uh, methods in which we can do the metagenomic analysis. Here I am going to give you a common pattern of or the commonly used pattern for metagenomic analysis. So these are the different steps in metagenomics analysis: sampling, DNA extraction, amplification, sequencing, assembly, binning, annotation, and statistical analysis. As I said before, based on the type of experiment and based on samples and also based on the objective of the study, the steps will vary. There will be additional steps or library preparation, or there will be less number of steps based on our objective of the study. So we are going to details about each and every steps. Before that, here is a schematic representation which is actually representing how this whole thing can work. And here you can see after the statistical analysis, this data is stored and data is shared, and we are forming a meta database. Okay, so that was not in our steps. And here before sampling we have an experimental design which is also important. So the major steps: first one is sampling. So in metagenomics, we are taking the environmental samples. We can actually take the sample from many places. We can take it from water, maybe from soil, different types of soil, or you can take it from the air, or as I said in the previous video, the human gut. We can study the genomics. Maybe you can take it from the human skin, or from the plant soil, the soil associated with the plant roots. So any places we can actually take the samples. And based on the sampling location, the procedure of sampling will vary. That's obvious. And once we got the sample, there in many protocols recommending a step of separation of cell from the samples. If you are taking the soil will have soil components and other components in the soil. Along with that, we have the microorganisms. So if you are looking at the microorganism, first thing you can do is the separation of the cells from the samples. If you are taking the gut sample, the gut will have other components, foodstuffs will be there, digestive enzymes will be there. Along with that, there will be large number of microorganisms. So before moving on, we can actually separate this microorganism, or the if you are specifically looking for a specific class of microorganism, we can actually separate that type of microorganism from the sample. So there are different techniques can be used for the separation of microorganism, which include fractionation, filtration, centrifugation, and flow cytometry. So these techniques will help to separate the cell from the sample. And while doing the sampling, cross-contamination with the non-target DNA or the host DNA should be avoided. So what we are collecting from the samples is called eDNA because we are taking it from the environment. So these are the different samples from which the metagenomic libraries can be constructed. Maybe abandoned metal or coal mining site, Arctic plankton, freshwater lakes or rivers, high temperature springs, then intestinal microbial communities from insects, humans or mice, marine sponges, oceans, sediments of all types, sewage sludge, soils of all types. So different types of samples can be taken for metagenomic analysis. So we are looking for the microorganism which cannot be cultured. So in all places it will be there. So once we have the samples, we can go for the DNA extraction. So isolation and extraction of the whole DNA from the microbial community. For metagenomics, we have to isolate whole type of DNA. The thing is that we have different techniques for the isolation of DNA from the microorganisms, and different microorganisms need to have different techniques. If you are isolating the DNA from the gram-positive bacteria, it might be different. The techniques will be different if you are isolating the DNA from a Shigella. So the techniques will vary based on the type of microorganism. But in metagenomics, what we need is we have to isolate whole DNA. In the samples, will have the archaebacteria, we'll have the bacteria, we'll have the bacteria without cell wall. So different types of population will be there. So our aim is to isolate whole DNA, the whole DNA present in the sample. So we need to have some generalized techniques which actually isolate the whole genome DNA of whole organisms, and the number of organisms may be very less. When we are culturing the microorganism, the number of microorganisms is very high, really high. But when we are doing taking a environmental DNA sample directly, the number of microorganisms will be very less. So we will be very much careful when we are handling the samples. So once we have the DNA extracted, it should be representative of the communities present in the particular sample, and it should have very high quality, because there should not be any contamination, so that we can use it for library preparation as well as for sequencing. And one thing, the about DNA extraction, the DNA extraction can be done in different ways. One is direct lysis. Direct lysis means we are lysing the cells directly. In indirect lysis, the lysis is along with the sample component. So based on the type of lysis method we are using, the yield of DNA and the quality of DNA will vary. Next step is amplification. So amplification is not necessary for all type of DNA extraction and metagenomics. If the DNA concentration is above 250 picomoles, nanogram, the DNA can be directly used for library preparation or sequencing. But if the yield of DNA is less than 250 nanogram, we need to do the amplification. Amplification can be done using PCR in a special type of technique called multiple displacement amplification, MDA. So this one, actually, when we are doing the amplification, PCR amplification, some of the samples will, the components will get amplified more than others. So which may lead to a bias in the metagenomic library. In older days, after the amplification, what we do, we are actually cloning this DNA into the bacteria. So we are taking the whole DNA from the environmental samples, and if required, we are doing the amplification, and this amplified DNA will be cloned into the whole Escherichia coli or some type of organism to create the genomic libraries or metagenomic libraries. But nowadays we don't have to do that. We can actually directly go for the sequencing, because now we have the advanced type of DNA sequencing techniques. Using that technique, we can actually directly go for the sequencing. But in all the textbooks, you will find that after amplification, they will be producing the library. So this library is actually the cloning of all the DNA isolated from the particular sample. So in the next step is sequencing. The metagenomic sequencing can be done in two different ways or two different strategies. One is amplicon sequencing, second is shotgun sequencing. In amplicon sequencing, we are sequencing only a specific region of DNA, and most commonly that DNA will be 16S rRNA gene. 16S rRNA gene is used as a marker. Depending on the type of microorganism, this marker will be changed. It's a molecular marker which is used for identifying microorganism. So 16S rRNA is actually a efficient and cost-effective strategies for microbiome analysis. We can actually know which all type of microorganism is present. So different types of microorganism will be having different types of 16S rRNA. But the thing is that it limited to the taxonomic classification to the genus level. Then it provide only very limited information about the functions of different genes. It is only sequencing the 16S rRNA, and its accuracy and reproducibility is pretty low. So we are not actually entertaining the amplicon sequencing. What we really do is the shotgun sequencing. In shotgun sequencing, we are sequencing the whole genome. Okay, the whole genome will be sequencing. The amplicon sequencing, we are sequencing only a specific part of the genome, and most probably that part will be 16S rRNA. Now once I am going to talk about the shotgun sequencing, which is a really advanced technique. In shotgun sequencing, we sequence the whole DNA, whole genomic DNA, or whole DNA isolated from the environmental samples in a random fashion. So the key to this method is we are doing is random sequencing. But it is the most efficient way of sequencing large genome, and which is extensively used in human genome sequencing. In this method, we break the DNA in random manner, and all the sequences arising from that digestion will be sequenced, and then we will use the computer programs to anneal the sequence into a single molecule. So here what we do, if you have a large DNA, let's go for a fragmentation. We will get fragments of different length, and all the fragments will be actually sequenced, and based on the sequence, computer program will actually help us to overlay one sequence over the other, and the common regions will be deleted. So that's how it's work. So that's the sequencing strategy. And sequencing methods. Two different types of methods are commonly used in sequencing of metagenomics. One is Sanger sequencing. We already learned that it has very low error rate, long reading lengths, and a large insert size. But the problem is that it is very labor intensive as well as very high cost. So nowadays we are using something called next gen sequencing. The next gen sequencing, huge amount of DNA can be sequenced in a very small amount of time, and these all of the machines are automated, so manual labor is not there, and it is comparatively very less expensive. So there are different systems for next gen sequencing, which include 454 Roche system, which actually use the emulsion polymerase chain reaction, then or Illumina, which is surface immobilized DNA sequencing, or PacBio Smart system, which actually use the zero mode wave gate for real-time analysis of DNA sequences. So different types of this next-gen sequencing can be used in metagenomics. So the shotgun metagenomic next generation sequencing is trying to sequence very large amount of DNA. So if you are taking an embryo of the samples, it will be have different, maybe millions of different types of cells, and we are actually sequencing genomes of all these cells. Maybe it's a very large scale DNA sequencing. In the sequencing, the quality of sequencing can be determined by a variable called the sequencing depth or sequencing coverage, which actually means the number of nucleotide contributing to a portion of an assembly. So how many times the single portion is actually sequenced. If the coverage is high, that means the quality of sequence is very high. If the coverage is less, the quality is not that much good. So for any type of DNA sequencing for metagenomics, we actually prefer longer reads. Each fragments will be large, but the sequencing methods like Illumina actually use very short reads. The individual fragments will be less, but their sequencing depth, the coverage is very high. But other techniques like PacBio is actually giving higher coverage, but error rate and sequencing depth and cost is high. Next step is assembly. Assembly is actually joining the sequences together. So that part is called assembly. In shotgun sequencing, we actually need to do the joining of the sequences. But when we are doing it for a single genome, it is very easy when compared to doing it for 1,000 genomes together. If you are taking an embryo of the samples, it will have different types of microorganisms. So when we are sequencing it, you will get a mess. So different types of sequences will be there simultaneously. So we need to actually find which sequence is fitting where. So the assembly process involving recover the genome of a uncultured organism or obtaining full-length protein coding sequences. It involves merging the reads from the same genome into a single continuous sequences that is called a condic. So we need to get the whole sequences from the fragments. The merging DNA sequences together is actually improving the quality of data. The challenge is that production of chimeras. When we are actually trying to stitch all the sequences together, sometimes what happens is like there are sequence homology between different organisms. So sequence for one organism will be stitched to or overlapped with the sequence of another organism. So we'll get a chimeric sequence. So that's a major limitations of assembly techniques. To avoid that, we have different assembly strategies. One is called a reference-based assembly strategy or co-assembly, in which the metagenic data is actually combined with the close related data. So based on the reference data, we are actually doing the assembly. In de novo assembly technique, which is actually or most of the de novo assembly techniques are based on de Bruijn graph method, and in which there are some set of rules which is actually governing the assembly of the different strands. Next step is binning. The binning is actually a method of sorting the DNA. So before actually assembling the DNA, what they do based on its characteristics, they will be sorted into different bins, different groups, and the assembly is actually doing it for the particular bin. So to avoid the chimera formation, we can do the binning. Binning can be again do in two different ways: compositional binning and similarity binning. The compositional binning, the similarity properties like the GC ratio, similarity in GC ratio may be used to actually cluster the DNA or the group the DNA together. For similarity binning, we are actually comparing it with some reference DNA to see that how they are grouped together. The binning can be unsupervised or supervised, and method of grouping can be self-organizing maps or hierarchical clustering. Binning algorithm including Phytopia, Takago, Megan, and Karma. So these are the names of different algorithms. Binning actually helps to reduce the complexity of data, and it also helps to reduce the chances of production chimeras. Um, then we have the annotation. Annotation is actually the method of finding the functions of the gene or finding the functions of a particular structure of DNA. So it can be either do for the whole genome. So if you are doing the annotation for the reconstructed whole genome, the annotation is actually requiring long strands of DNA. So from the metagenome, we can actually construct the whole genome of a uncultured microorganism. The microorganism, unculturable microorganism actually. From the metagenomics, we are actually taking the sample, isolating the DNA, and sequencing the DNA. From the sequence, we can actually reconstruct the genome of the organism. So the organism is unknown, but the genome is known. So that type of annotations need to have very large sequences of DNA. Second type of annotations is annotation for unassembled reads or short contigs. So we know we sometime in the metagenomics we are not able to reconstruct the whole genome, but we can actually construct a small portion of genome. Based on the characteristic of this small portion, we can actually predict whether this DNA is going to make a RNA or this resulting RNA is going to make a protein. So we already know the sequences of the promoter, we already know the sequences of the ribosome binding site, we know the termination site. So based on all this information, we can actually make or predict whether this DNA, which is isolated from the embryonal DNA, is producing any protein. And if it is producing the protein, we can actually predict the secondary structure of that protein, and we can also predict the tertiary structure, or even we can predict the function of the protein. So that's how the annotation works for a short DNA molecules. And this annotation can be done in two different ways: de novo gene prediction, in which the software is actually trained to predict this type of gene, or we can use the protein family classification. Once we are able to classify the protein, we can actually find the function of the protein, or we can use a fragment recruitment method for annotation. So feature prediction is a process of labeling the sequence as genes or genomic elements. In functional annotation involve computational prediction of gene function coupled with manual curation. In metagenomics, we have huge amount of DNA. So this huge amount of DNA isolated from different microorganisms cannot be subjected to or cannot be used for manual annotation. The only annotation technique possible is the computer-based annotation. So different strategies and different types of sequencing algorithms are used for annotating this type of sequences, metagenomic DNA. One example is HMM. Or the other databases for functional annotation include SEED, KEGG, etc. The final step of metagenomics analysis is statistical analysis. So statistical tools can be used for identifying correlations and statistical significant patterns between different embryonal samples. So in which we are actually comparing different next generation sequence data to get meaningful assumptions. So if you are taking the metagenomic data from a particular soil, we can actually compare the metagenomic data of a different soil. Or if we can take a soil sample now, and after maybe 6 months we can take another sample, and after another 6 months we can take another sample, and we can compare how the genomic genomics is changed during the period. So such type of studies can be used using statistical analysis. So one of the software which can be used for comparing different types of metagenomics is called the primer e-package. It has different types of multi-dimensional scaling plots, then analysis of similarities and identification of species or functions. So these all things can be done by comparing different types of metagenomics data together. So here is another image representing the steps in next metagenomic analysis. It is very much similar to the previous image. Thank you so much.